What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another video of CFC DP. We have an excellent one for you today. Chelsea are less than a week away from beginning their preseason tour in the US of A. So what are the big 5 things that I'm looking for this tour? We'll get into that in a little bit. But first, we got to talk about Cy Phillips Talks Chelsea, an amazing platform that I joined recently. Simon Phillips, you must all know him from Twitter. He has amazing content on that platform. Podcasts, videos, player reviews, match reviews, everything that you could look for, as well as a full aggregated blog that has all of the Chelsea news of the day right in there in one place for you. You can comment, you can join the community. There's so many ways to get involved. So go ahead and find the link in the description below and get started right now. The number one thing I'm looking for this preseason is which fullbacks are inverting, whether the left or the right side. We saw Maresca primarily use Ricardo Pereira as that inverting midfielder last season. A couple other guys, but it was always on the right-hand side. Is that the role that's going to be utilized for Reece James or Malo Gusto? It's going to be a situation of where are the best players going to fit in that role. Personally, I think on the left-hand side, you have 2 guys in Marc Cucurella and Renato Veiga who could really do that role. They've played DM, they've moved into those positions before, so it's something that you know they can do. Reece James did play DM at Wigan, so he does have experience there. You know, you want to be careful with him with the amount of running and just miles that you're putting on his legs throughout the course of a season, but I think he could do that role. So who is going to be playing that inverted role? I suspect that you're going to see a little bit from each side during the season, and I think in preseason you will furthermore see that happen where those 2 guys on each side are maybe even rotating throughout a match. And that could be a fascinating thing to see because I think each one of those players offers something in that position. The only one that I don't really think that could do it is Ben Chilwell. So we heard a couple weeks ago about Manchester United potentially be interested in Ben Chilwell. So is that a player that Chelsea would be comfortable leaving? He does have leadership. He does have the vice captaincy. But as terms of what he does best in overlapping and bombing forward, there really isn't that role in Maresca's system. But does Maresca say he is a leader? He gets on with all the guys. He's a really good player, but he doesn't exactly fit. Does he alter it just a little bit to get Ben Chilwell to stay in this team? That is what I'm looking for. Who are his trusted inverted midfielders? Because I think that would have a big future telling on what Ben Chilwell's role could be in the squad this upcoming season. Number 2, in my opinion, is the placement of the other midfielders, particularly because of Enzo Fernandez's situation, which is extremely unfortunate and wrong. And I think we can expect that he might be missing some time regardless while this whole thing gets sorted out. Him and Caicedo were gone for a while. It doesn't appear that Caicedo will be coming back right away. It doesn't appear that Enzo will be back for a while. So where do the other midfield pieces fit at this point? Where does Andre Santos fit into this whole equation is what's really interesting to me, because I think he is a player that could play that deep lying 6 and rotate with Romeo Lavia, who's another basically new signing this season. Or is Andre Santos going to move into that slight box-to-box role, which I think he would be best for? The only problem is that there are a few players that will likely be starting there ahead of him. Kieran Dewsbury-Hall will certainly be a guy. Moises Caicedo will certainly be there. Will Conor Gallagher still be here? There's a lot of potential players in that role. Does Nkunku fit in that? Does Palmer fit in that top 10, 8 role? There's so many questions that have to be answered. But I think where those players are positioned in preseason, you can start to sort of forecast what Maresca's plans are with this squad for the rest of the season. If Andre Santos is playing more further up, is that a sign that Conor Gallagher will be sold? If he is playing further back, is that a sign that, you know, maybe Enzo Fernandez's situation isn't going to be as cut and dry, you know? And nobody really knows, but you need to have depth in those areas. Santos is that Swiss Army knife type player that we've heard over and over in the briefings from Chelsea that they want in their squad. So I would not be surprised if Santos is somebody that could stay if he has a strong preseason. And I mentioned it before, Romeo Lavia is going to be super fun to watch this preseason. I think his ability to play as that 6, he's got great passing range. He can put a tackle in him. I mean, you don't remember him so much from a couple years ago at Southampton when he was really week in and week out their #1 player at 18 years old. But we really want to see him thrive and stay healthy. So even if it's easing him into it, I think it'll be important to see where he is positioned and what that could have an effect on in terms of, we got a lot of games this year. So where are these players going to play? And how many minutes are all these players going to play in these positions? Next is Christopher Nkunku, the guy that every Chelsea fan has tried to fit in Maresca's starting 11 with his current formation. And there is so many different opportunities for him. And I think he will be sort of a roamer, and not a roamer because the system is very structured, but I think you'll see him in a few different positions. I think you will see him at striker. I think you will see him as that one of those top midfield pairs in the box. I think you will see him on the left wing at times. He is another Swiss Army knife player. So what is going to be the best position? Because Nicholas Jackson will certainly, at some point, need to take a rest. I mean, he's not going to be able to play striker the entire time. So Nkunku would be the #1 option to go up there. And then I think, when you want to talk about Maresca's system, being very strong in those half spaces is critical. So guys like Carney Chukwuemeka, Dewsbury Hall, Palmer, and Nkunku are guys that could really thrive in those spaces on the field. So where does Nkunku play? I think this preseason will be telling. I think in the best 11, he probably does fit in one of those top positions, maybe alongside Cole Palmer and Nkunku, and then you try to figure it out because it's not apples to apples on how Nkunku fits and how Maresca plays. But his quality is clear. You have to have him in the squad. So we'll be tracking where he is playing this preseason, and I hope it's at striker some. But I could see him playing in those half-space channels quite a bit. Number 4 is Angelo Gabriel. Does he have an opportunity to make this team this season? I think he does, because when you start to look at where Palmer fits in this squad, he likes to come inside and fit in those little half-space channels. He can play right wing. There's no doubt about that. But as of right now, Noni Madueke is your starting right winger. Palmer fits in one of those top spots. But at the same time, you do have to sort of think about, do we need an extra body on that right-hand side? Because if Palmer's in and Noni's in, you might want to make a change for Noni, but keep Palmer inside a little bit. So I think Angelo Gabriel has a sneaky chance to make this team, especially with the Conference League and the Cup competitions coming up. He did really well at Strasbourg. He was injured for quite a bit of the season, but when he did play, you could see why Chelsea were interested in him. His dribbling ability, his assisting. He didn't score any goals, but he has a lot of opportunities to get shots off. And if you look at his season heat map compared to Fatawu from Leicester last year, both very heavily close to that touch line. So profile-wise, I think he would fit in with Maresca and what he wants to do. Do you want to use an international loan spot on him, or would it be more valuable to use on somebody else? Is Andre Santos' future? I mean, we only really have about 5 spots remaining, maybe even 4 if you include Aaron Anselmino, whose deal is not complete yet, but with every report, it seems like it will be. So does Angelo Gabriel have opportunities this preseason to impress, and will he make the squad? I think there's a good chance. But obviously performance will be the key. And do you want to maybe risk not having a lot of minutes for him in order to keep quality depth? That's something that needs to be considered. But there's a lot of factors that need to juggle. But I expect Angelo Gabriel to impress in this preseason like he did in last year. So there is a possibility that he could be on the squad next season. And finally, my 5th thing that I'm looking for in this preseason tour is, will the striker situation sort itself out? Nicholas Jackson is the clear #1 up top right now. He had a very good season last year, was a little bit inconsistent to say the least, but it was his first season and you would expect him to have a natural progression and continue to get better and better, right? So being more clinical, being more just aware and heady in situations. But I think he has the ability to do that, and I think Chelsea believe that he can do that as well. And I think that's why you haven't seen Chelsea go full-fledged for a striker at this point. Christopher Nkunku obviously is another option that I mentioned before. He could fit in that role. But what are we going to do with that group of strikers that seemingly will be coming on the tour that are kind of in limbo at this point? Mark Guiu probably is the leader in the clubhouse right now to be the third striker. I think he's going to have to perform in preseason and really show that he is willing and able to step in. If Nkunku's on the pitch already and Jackson needs to come off to come in and make an impact, can he hold his own in cup competitions and in games such as that? You know, and then you start to go down the list and you say, okay, Armando Broja, is he going to be sold? Probably. I mean, you see him in training, but I think he's probably going to be sold. David Dacho Fofana, will he be ready for another Premier League loan, or will he be sold? I mean, there's probably 35, maybe 40 million in assets right there in players that Chelsea probably would be willing to move on at, but they're not gone yet. So what does that do with minutes in preseason? Because I think you want to find answers in preseason with players that'll actually be here. So that would be like a lot of Guiu, maybe a lot of Dacho Fofana, maybe a lot of Broja. I mean, it's going to be probably two of those guys that's going to really be like, all right, these guys have an actual chance to make the team. When we get closer and we get back from the tour, maybe they'll be sold or maybe they'll be loaned beforehand. But like I said, I think Mark Guiu probably has that edge right now to fit in that role. He was bought in. I don't think there's any plans to loan him. There has been rumors that have gone out that maybe he'll go back to Spain on loan for a year. I don't know. I'd like to see what he can really do at this level. And then, as Mauricio Pochettino said, we mustn't forget about Washington. David Washington is another guy that needs to have his future sorted in the short term, because you can't have him sit on the bench this season. And I don't think you can really have him play U21s either, because he does not really have a spot. And I think that's detrimental to a player's growth and progression. So what will it take to get David Washington a loan? I doubt he would be sold, but I do think that if you moved him to a Strasbourg where the vision is clear that this guy can help you, he's going to play, rather than sending him to a club where, yeah, he's not really our striker, we don't really have any purchasing interest or an option clause, there's no point in playing him. So David Washington is a guy I expect to go on loan. I would expect probably both of Fofana and Broja to be sold, or one maybe loaned, and then Mark Guiu to take that spot. So, because you really don't want to block those U21 strikers, Dujan Richards, and the whole crew that's down there. So there's a lot to be sorted out, and these games will sort it out. And we'll come back. We'll come back after the tour, and we'll say, were these questions answered? And we'll go over them, and we'll see if my predictions were right or not, which was even more fun to do. So we're going to be doing a couple of different things on the channel coming up during this preseason tour. The first game, which is 9:30 Central Time here in the United States, I will be doing a live stream on this channel, and we'll be talking about the game, doing some tactical analysis, getting some reactions. So while many people in the UK might be asleep and not willing to stay up for a Wrexham-Chelsea game, the first one of the year, you can rest assured that you'll be able to find some content here, live stream, during the match to follow along with. I'm really excited to get into actual tactics and talking about what Enzo Maresca is trying to do, and just see what it is, because you can speculate, you can watch training videos, you can discern what you want, but when the ball is actually in play, that's when you can really start to say, okay, this is happening, he changed this is happening, and I'm really excited to get into that. And as always, if you want to follow more of my content, you can check me out at Cy Phillips Talks Chelsea. The link is in the description. Great site once again. You can also follow me on Twitter at CFCDP1. And please, let me know what you guys think in the comments about any of these topics. Does Angelo Gabriel have a chance? Is Andre Santos going to benefit more from staying here this season rather than going on loan? Will Gallagher be sold? Which striker will be sold? There's a lot to get into this season, and it's just heating up. And once these matches come out, there's going to be more content coming out almost every day, because there's going to be just so much to go on about actual football. And while we love transfer windows, actual football is what at least I love to talk about. So We'll get into that later, but thank you very much. Please go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll check you out next time.